Let's get back to the NNPC Limited. Says it secured crude for cash funding from Afrexim Bank headquarters in Cairo, Egypt. That's what you call a swap. Why the details are still sketchy? We understand that the NNPC will repay the loan with crude oil at an interest rate between 8% and 11%. Those are your stories, and we're seeing some of the images that the NNPC has on its official Twitter handle today, with Mele Kyari, the group managing director of the NNPC, signing that deal at the Afrexim Bank headquarters in Cairo, Egypt. That's the news tonight. The Nigerian government is battling to contain both the intended and the unintended consequences of its twin policies of fuel subsidy removal and unification of central bank exchange rates, which were announced between May and June. The president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is walking a tightrope right now, looking to contain social discontent over rising fuel prices and sinking naira value, piling into industrial and commercial inflation. Discussing the state of the Nigerian economy with me right now is Paul Alaje, the chief economist at SPM Professionals. Thanks for making it to the show tonight. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you so very much for having me, sir.
Let's start with what we have, which is just the latest. The NNPC Limited announcing $3 billion crude oil swap with Afrexim Bank. Give me your first word on that.
Well, 3 billion will impact on our foreign reserve almost immediately. Recall that what the central bank had claimed was in foreign reserve is contradict what we have in the report that was shared, the audited report that was published by the central bank. So as much as we can stimulate supply side, this 3 billion will stimulate supply side, but we need to also be wary. We are going to be using oil to pay back. Now, what is the cost of oil? At what percentage? Even though the percentage has been mentioned, can we do something in terms of earning money rather than going and borrowing? Recall that from the report that was shared by central bank, a lot of monies that we have, even in our foreign reserve, are product of loans. So first of all, I must say that this has both positives and negatives. The positive is that it's going to help Central Bank of Nigeria to improve the foreign reserve, which of course is a major challenge for everybody right now.
How would you describe the unfolding impact of the fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate unification? Would you say that what we are seeing right now are what you call intended or unintended consequences of those announcements made between May and June?
Well, there are intended, there is some intention in the mind of government when the policy was made. One of the intention is for government to have more revenue. World Bank was very clear in their advisory to the government regarding the need for government to remove subsidy. They've been very tenacious in making this presentation right from the time of President Jonathan. And you recall that it was likely described as a bottleneck that is stopping Nigeria revenue inflows. What World Bank has not told Nigeria is that without a functional refinery, Nigeria will remain indebted to many countries. Now, on one side, World Bank is advising us to remove subsidy. On the second side, IMF is advising us to float our currency. Unfortunately, the two decisions have been taken together, and every economist, of course, that are Keynesians, will tell you that you cannot take two decisions together. Why? Because of our population, majority of people in our population, according to an agency of World Bank, we have more than half of our population living in multidimensional poverty. Capacity to pay for the new prices remain a concern. So, on 27th of June 2023, the same World Bank wrote a report and said that because of this policy and the fact that palliative has not been provided, 7.1 million Nigerians will join the poverty line. It's a big challenge, it's a big concern that before we made the policy, we have really not prepared for the aftermath effect and unintended consequences of subsidy removal plus devaluation of currency. What does it mean? The real meaning of subsidy removal and currency devaluation is this. People call it unification. But you see, technically, speaking economics, it is devaluation. Because the value of naira, rather than improving, it is decreasing. So this is what it means when you devalue. If you have somebody, your trading partner, who gives you $1,000 to import anything from Nigeria, for the sake of example, let's say a bottle water, for the sake of example. Now, if a bottle water in Nigeria costs 100,000 naira, and the person we buy with $1,000, that is 1 to 100, that is $1 to 100. The moment naira gets devalued, it could go to say 200,000. That means the person on the other side will now spend half of his sweat to buy what it used to buy in Nigeria. It's a big challenge. What many people look at is one side of, if we devalue, it will be difficult for us to import. But we don't even know that when we're exporting with devalued currency, to even put production together, it's going to be much more difficult for manufacturers locally to produce. So when we are looking at economic situation, we should look at the consequences, both intended and unintended. Unfortunately, unintended consequences of subsidy removal and devaluation seems to have taken many policy makers to have taken them aback. As we have seen state governor who said, well, the solution to him is that workers that should be coming to work should be coming only 3 times in a week. What he did not realize is that he has technically slashed productivity by nearly 40%. Given that, assuming that each day represents a day of productivity, or 10%, 20% of productivity if they are to work only for 5 days. So here is it, there are a lot of unintended consequences, which includes, of course, high inflation. You saw the recent inflation figures that was released by the Bureau of Statistics. And you saw that inflation has gotten to second to the last floor of Cocoa House building in Ibadan. Cocoa House is about 25-story building. Inflation right now is at 24%. Which is a lot of worry. We are only hoping that we will never get to that 25th floor. Okay, because when we do, it means that 25% of our wealth this time last year has been eroded. Not because the money we are earning will not remain the same, but because devaluation of currency is telling on us subsidy removal means we need to spend more in terms of part of our disposable income just for us to get to places of work or places that we can consume.
The point is this: if you remember throughout last year, towards the elections in February this year, the sing-song on the street was that full subsidy should go. Would you say Nigerians really understood what the full weight of full subsidy removal and a single FX rate on their daily lives will bring? Do you think we really understood what we were walking into when everyone was saying, look, remove full subsidy, have a single exchange rate, that was the way to go? Did we understand what we were getting into?
Well, I'm not sure many Nigerians understand and realize, and you recall that immediately after the election, you had interviewed me regarding what should be done on fuel subsidy. And I've spoken vehemently and emphatically that without refinery functioning, forget fuel subsidy. Do not also devalue the currency if you have not solved the supply side. Even regarding fuel subsidy, our major challenge, major problem today is not going to borrow. That's not our problem. Even when you look at our Euro bond, what was the performance as reported by Bloomberg today? You see the report that Nigerian Euro bonds perform worse than many of the counterparts around the world today. Why are we having this? Because we have shy away from solving the supply side. You cannot clap with one hand, but some of the policy attempts that many of us regarding fuel subsidy, if you remove subsidy and you don't provide alternative, that means the destiny of over 200 million people should be based on those that are importing for us. We will skills our job and consume the final product. So quite a number of other things that would have benefited. So I'm sure Nigeria did not understand the meaning of fuel subsidy removal. And I saw all the leading candidates, top candidates, the 3 or 4 of them, they all said, we will remove subsidy, we will remove subsidy, we will remove subsidy. And I was asking, if you must remove subsidy, what must you do? That question was never answered by virtually all the candidates that were top runner in 2023 election. Today, we are seeing the reality. One of the candidates, of course, emerged, and he has carried out some of the things he promised majority of Nigeria regarding fuel subsidy. But the odds is what Nigeria are bearing now. Now, in economy, you can bear pain. But the question will be, are you bearing pain of odds or the pain of medication? Medication will come when we have started focusing
that's the next point. That's the next point, Paul. How should the Tinubu's administration work its way through this delicate full subsidy removal issue and at the same time unifying the central bank FX rate? What do you think is the way out? The easy way out?
First of all, we need all the dollars in billions as much as we can today. I hear recently government is thinking of sales of some assets, but the method with which we go about this is very, very important. We need to look at those that have performed before. For instance, the Ford refinery, they should go partly into the hands of private sector, returning billions of dollars into Nigerian vote, and that should be directly monitored by the office of Mr. President and whosoever I appoint as Minister of Petroleum. I mean, if this goes directly to the cover of government, we can realize as much as $16 billion in, say, an average of 4 per refinery, and that does not mean finance, but a first installment payment. When that goes to our foreign reserve, you would know that this money is ours. We are not borrowing, unlike the recent report that was shared today that Nigeria has gone borrowing again. But when you have this, Nigeria still has interest. The part of the shares will be retained in our state, and those that are taken over, of course, we have some. And there is a magic that government can do: give a proportion, no matter how small, to the citizens of Nigeria. That is how you can reduce the impact of subsidy on many of our people. That said, apart from that, we now need to go into real supply side, real sector, which means how do we boost agriculture? It's not going to come by using the template of Anchor Borrowers Program. I've said it time and again, even though we have some level of success, but you know generally that the result of Anchor Borrowers Program is not different from Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, because we are unable to measure in real sense what the result was. Today, many people are finding it very difficult to play. But what must we do? We need to go into plantation. Plantation provide specimen local government lands for government through partnership with states that can help us produce areas that is favorable to planting of rice, areas that is favorable to planting of cassava. Most of the foods that we consume in Nigeria, we need to be more structured and organized. After that, we need to translate it into processing. We need to translate it into manufacturing, into production. We must do everything to provide some of the things we eat. And most importantly, the most important one is not for us to produce, but we must export. Nigeria must break all the barriers, all the bottlenecks for exportation. I can tell you, one of the things that is most difficult for us to do in this country is to export. It's even more challenging to export than to import. Everybody knows online you are importing. But how do we export? Nigeria must change orientation. We must calibrate the minds of those that are leading us today into export, and export. That way, you will see Naira improve significantly. And when you devalue, it will really make sense.
So to sum it up, again, very quickly, my last question, just before that, is the fact that the NNPC secured $5 billion with Afrexim Bank just last year over what you call corporate finance commitment issue. Before that, Afrexim Bank signed $1.04 billion deal with NNPC. That was back in 2021. So this is not the first time we're having this handshake with Afrexim Bank. But finally, just to put it to rest, what are the socio-economic realities that Nigerians should prepare for over the short to medium term period, despite whatever government officials, PR managers, media aides, to whoever, to the president or whoever, say everything is okay? What do you think realistically should Nigeria prepare for in the short to medium term?
Well, it's tougher times ahead, even though government have said they will do everything possible to ensure that the PMS price does not increase. That conversation is I will leave it for another day, because if government is saying that, there are some possibilities that I think we might not have mentioned in this conversation. But here is it: if we are talking about if we are talking about the reality of what I think government should do today, then Nigeria should do today in terms of preparing for tough time ahead. I can tell you inflation is already on 24%. It will certainly go up because, of course, we can see the reality in August. But for how long this will be, it will be up to the time we are ready to move our focus from demand side to supply side. That time we can say we are gradually coming to the end of the impact of some of these, the impact of the aftermath effect of the policies that were recently made in Nigeria.
Alaje, public policy analyst and senior economist at SPM Professionals, thank you so much for your perspectives on these issues of national economic importance. Do have a great evening.